Okay, so today we're going to be replacing the fuel pump on the 06 Nissan Murano that's underneath this driver's side rear seat cushion. Current symptom is periodically the car won't start. It'll crank but not start. It's been something that's happened intermittently for maybe a couple of years now. You get in the car, crank the key, it just won't run, won't fire. So what I've been doing to deal with it in the meantime is I'll turn the key on for a few seconds, turn it off, turn it on again and off. And eventually the car will start and run. Never a check engine code attached to this. So the car's got a little over 265,000 now. So I was thinking that I had a weak or dying fuel pump that only shows up from time to time. Sometimes they would call that a dead spot in the electric pump motor, where depending on where the electric pump actually stops, it won't generate electricity properly. The electricity can't get to the motor properly to actually spin it. So I think that's what's going on. I don't know 100% this is going to solve my problem, but between the mileage and the symptom and how intermittent it is, this is my best shot at this time. There's another part called a fuel damper. I'm told about that's up near the engine, and that helps to keep fuel pressure in the rail when the truck or the car is shut off. But my suspicion is that if it was a fuel damper, I should be able to get it to start after that first key on cycle, because turn the key on, the pump will pressurize that rail again and then start. But I've had to do the key on procedure several times in a row and actually crank the car a few times before I can actually get it to start in those cases. So I don't think it's the fuel damper because of that reason. Because if the pump was working properly and fuel pressure at the rail was the only issue, the fuel pump should be able to bring that rail up to pressure within just a couple of seconds. So I'll walk you through what we're going to do. Here we go. So you got two plastic covers that cover the hinges on the front of the seat. These just pull off and then they just clip straight back on. Under each of those covers is a bolt, 14 millimeter. Two 14 millimeter bolts. Now we can lift this up. Okay, I'm gonna have to strap this to the headrest with something. There's a cardboard flap here. I'm gonna pull it this way, and that exposes the top cover for the fuel pump. Okay, these look like these are plastic, but they're Phillips head fittings there. So I got a Phillips head screwdriver. So I'm actually turning these clockwise to the right to make it so I can take off this metal cover. So that's a little different. Okay, it's got like a foam seal to it. So I just had to kind of pry it up a little. So this wire goes through this. You won't be able to take this completely off until you reach down and unplug the plug that's on top of this fuel pump. Okay, fuel pump housing. So just a regular plug. You squeeze down the tab, slide the plug off. Now I can move this thing out of the way. So before I go any further, this is real filthy on top of here. I'm going to go ahead and use my my blowgun, my air compressor, to blow all that crap out of there. I do not want any of that entering my tank when I do this. Now I'm going to take a second to compare the top of this part that I got, make sure I'm got the right thing before I go any further, at least from the top of the tank perspective. Okay. To me it looks like the right part, shaped the same, got the plug and the fittings going the same right direction. I'm going to disconnect these fittings. This fitting here, I'm going to push in a little bit, squeeze the green tabs, and then slide it off. You want to watch out for that, because that just got me a little. Probably was a better way to relieve the fuel pressure than that. So Oopsie. Maybe wear goggles. Maybe put a rag over that when you do that. This time, I'm gonna push in on the fitting, and there's a spot here on the top that I'm gonna press down on, and that relieves that. So this is probably the return line, I'm guessing. These are hard plastic. I don't love the location there, and they're kind of tricky to work around. So what you'll see here now we're ready to remove this, but we have to remove this top locking ring first, okay? This whole ring has to get turned in a uniform manner. Read a lot of stuff online that people might like to just bang on and bend these tabs out of the way. Maybe you can get it off that way, but I'm more concerned about trying to get it back on. And in order to push down and twist that ring when we're ready to, it's going to be a lot harder, I think, trying to sort of jury rig it back into place. So what I did the research online. I bought the correct tool for this car. This is for Nissans. This I think was about 130 bucks just to buy this tool. However, I think it's going to save me a lot of aggravation. I think it's going to save me 135 bucks worth of aggravation, okay? This came from freedomracing.com. They got it to me fast. I can already see just by looking at it, it's well made. The part number is J-46211 by Kent Moore, USA, M-O-O-R-E. And once I get these lines sort of moved out of the way a little bit, this has 5 different teeth that key into that locking ring perfectly, okay? So it fits on perfect. Now I can turn that with a 1/2-inch ratchet. Quick turn, and that ring is loose already, no problem. As far as I'm concerned, I've already made that 130 bucks in aggravation. So now, what we'll do, try and get these lines out of the way a little bit. It's kind of tricky to do so. They're not really cooperating with me too good. So now with that ring off, this pump assembly is free to come up and out of the tank. What I'm going to do now though, is I'm going to put something on here to try and catch some of the fuel, because that's going to be a mess. It's an old coolant jug or something. So I'm going to try and just lift this up and set it right in that and take it inside the shop. Okay, so what it was is now you can see how much this elbow comes out. It was a matter of getting it maneuvered so that elbow could actually come out for me. So now I can disconnect this electrical connector. It's like a normal one. Nothing too fancy there. Gotta make sure I don't lose it. And then this plug is the same as the second one that we did on top, where it has a little connector, little push section there. I'm gonna push in on the connector towards the body, then push in on that release section and slide it off. So now that old pump and sending unit is totally free. Now, I haven't let go of this plug and hose because I'm too scared I'm going to lose it inside the tank. So now I can go ahead, click that hose onto the new pump, put the electrical connector onto the new pump. Now I'm going to try and put the float in first, because I think that needs more space than that other connector. And I'm going to just keep maneuvering it. It's sliding right in for me nice. Okay, take it nice and easy. I hear it bubbling as the tank fills up, or as the pump fills up with all the fuel. Okay, there's some spring to the top of it. There's some spring to this, okay? So it doesn't sit. If you don't push this down a little, it won't sit all the way down. So that's what I'm running into. I did not notice that before. So now I can get it properly aligned and just push it down, and it'll actually go in. So that's another great reason to have this proper tool that I paid for, because you're going to have to push down on this thing at the same time you turn that locking ring to lock it back into place. Okay, so trying to get that locking ring reattached got very difficult very quickly. So I turned off the camera. I tried to figure out what was going on. And what I learned is no matter what I did, even though I had this, you know, special tool I paid for, no matter what I did, I couldn't compress the new O-ring under the fuel pump sending unit. I could not compress it enough. Even with all my weight pushing down as I tried to lock that ring again, it just wouldn't go. I could not get it locked into those tabs properly. So I decided to pull the pump back out again, and I compared the new rubber seal, the new rubber O-ring, to the old O-ring. The old O-ring was still in good shape. Wasn't damaged or torn or dried out. It was nice and soft still. But when I compared them, the new ring looked to be maybe about 1 millimeter thicker. And that was about how much distance I was missing, I think, trying to push that locking ring down before I could lock it. So with the pump out, I switched out the rings. I put the old ring back on, slid the pump in, pressed it down like I showed you, and I was able to get the locking ring to lock again. The only other thing was, if you're doing that locking ring with this tool and you try and apply slow, steady pressure clockwise, you know, it wasn't really working. So I actually struck this. I was pushing down, of course, to try and press that O-ring down, and then I would hit this a couple of times, and then that gave it enough jolt to start locking it in. And then it was just a little more of a turn, a slight turn after that, to lock it completely in. And I'll show you it's locked back in. I'll show you another couple details about it. Okay, so here's a close-up of the tabs that you're locking into with this locking ring, okay? They're all the way around the perimeter, and you'll know when it's totally locked when this part of the ring here, it's not this, when this tab on the ring makes contact with this locking tab here, okay? That means it's fully seated. And that goes forward towards the front of the vehicle. It's kind of hard to see now, but there is a yellow dot here. That yellow dot corresponds to the yellow dot here on the tank, on the body of the tank. So there's a couple of tips. I strongly recommend using this socket. I know it seems expensive, and it might be expensive, but with all the frustration I had, especially trying to get the new gasket to fit, and then learning it wasn't the correct thickness, I can't imagine going through all that hassle without that socket. Even with this frustration of the gasket, that socket made this so much simpler and easier. The other issue is, as you saw earlier, when you put this down, you have to push on it, because it's like spring loaded underneath. You have to press on it and then add the ring to it, press the whole thing down at once. Then you got to get this on top of that. Hopefully it doesn't come, misaligned. And then you got to press it all and then turn it all. So I found it a little bit challenging. So, I mean, the last thing you need is to also have to figure out how to jury rig these to reattach and so on. So, at any rate, that's what it is. I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.